Welcome back to the Holy Discussion. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this episode. Share it with your friends so they can join us on these deep dives. And don't forget to press that bell icon so you don't miss out on any future explorations. Today, we're going to be diving deep into the life of John.
Okay.
A prominent Christian evangelist known for his bold approach to sharing his faith.
John's story is a powerful example of how seemingly disparate experiences can really converge to shape a person's worldview. And we'll be unpacking an interview where he reveals a secret he kept for over 50 years.
Right.
A secret that adds a surprising layer to his journey to faith.
Okay, let's unpack this. John's early life sounds almost idyllic. He grew up near a beautiful lake, spending most of his days enjoying nature and even coming up with these creative ways to signal dinner time while he was out on his boat.
It's fascinating how this carefree upbringing contrasts with the profound existential questions that would later consume him. It's as if the seeds of his spiritual searching were planted amidst this tranquil backdrop.
And it sounds like those seeds were tragically watered at a young age. John talks about the heartbreaking loss of his beloved dog, Sparky, who was hit by a car. Having to carry his injured pet home must have been a traumatic experience for a young boy.
This encounter with death, witnessing the sudden loss of a close companion,
Right.
seems to have been a pivotal moment for John. It exposed him to the harsh realities of mortality and sparked those early questions about life, death, and the meaning of it all. And it's a theme that seems to have stayed with him, lurking beneath the surface, only to reemerge later in a much more intense way.
And that reemergence, as we'll learn, came through a rather unexpected catalyst, LSD. Now, John was deeply embedded in the boating community.
Right.
A world that, as he describes it, had its fair share of thrill-seeking and, sadly, drug use.
Yeah.
He saw 5 of his friends lose their lives to drugs, highlighting the dark underbelly of this seemingly carefree lifestyle.
This context is crucial to understanding the pressures just faced. He initially resisted trying LSD, but the prevalence of drug use in his social circle created an environment where it was almost expected.
You can almost sense that unspoken peer pressure, that feeling of being the odd one out for not partaking in what was unfortunately a common activity.
Exactly. And despite his initial reservations, John eventually succumbed to that pressure. He recounts his first LSD experience in vivid detail, describing a feeling of surrealness washing over him. He remembers driving home with absolutely no recollection of the journey, a complete blank space in his mind.
That sounds terrifying. A complete loss of control.
Yes.
And it seems like those feelings of fear were amplified by these intense emotions, leading him to weep openly in the streets as the thought of everyone's inevitable death overwhelmed him.
His experience is a stark reminder of the potential dangers of LSD. It can distort reality, impair judgment, and lead to unpredictable, sometimes even fatal consequences. We know that one of John's friends, Sarah, tragically jumped off a cliff while under the influence of LSD, a sobering reminder of the risks associated with these substances.
It's a complicated situation, isn't it? This dangerous drug playing a pivotal role in his spiritual journey. It's important to note that despite his later religious beliefs, John doesn't shy away from acknowledging the dangers of his experience. He's very candid about the risks associated with LSD.
Absolutely. He recognizes the darkness and potential harm of that experience, even as he reflects on the profound, albeit unintended, impact it had on his path to faith.
Right.
It's almost paradoxical how this substance, often associated with escapism, ultimately forced him to confront some of life's biggest questions.
It's like the LSD experience ripped the Band-Aid off those existential wounds he'd been carrying since childhood, forcing him to confront them head on. And from what he describes, things escalated quickly. He mentioned seeing hallucinations of his dog floating above the ground and a vision of the word "why" ascending to heaven.
What's fascinating here is the symbolism of that word "why" reaching up to the heavens.
Right.
It perfectly encapsulates the desperate search for meaning he was experiencing. It's as if his subconscious, fueled by the LSD, was trying to articulate the questions that had been brewing within him for years.
It's almost like his internal struggle was manifesting itself in these vivid and somewhat disturbing visions. And all of this culminated in a pivotal moment while he was still under the influence of LSD. John was looking at his sleeping wife and was suddenly overcome with this crushing realization of life's fragility,
Right.
the inevitability of death,
Yes.
the impermanence of everything.
It's remarkable how this experience, fueled by a psychedelic drug, seemed to crack open something within him. It unearthed these deep-seated fears and anxieties, almost preparing the ground for his later embrace of faith. It's as if the LSD experience, with all its darkness and danger, shook him to his core, making him more receptive to a different way of viewing life and death.
It's a powerful example of how unexpected experiences can lead to profound shifts in perspective, even if those experiences are fraught with risk. And just 6 months later, John converted to Christianity.
Wow.
It sounds like he went all in, dedicating himself completely to his newfound faith. He started printing pamphlets about the gospel at home.
Okay.
Which, for our listeners who may not be familiar, is the central message of Christianity about Jesus' life and teachings. He put up billboards with verses from the Bible, even preached on a street corner.
His transformation was dramatic and immediate. He channeled all his energy into spreading this newfound sense of hope and purpose. It's particularly striking that he went on to establish a drug prevention center, using his past experience with LSD to help others avoid the same pitfalls.
That's an interesting observation. It almost seems like there's a direct connection between his past struggles with drugs and his dedication to helping others avoid the same fate. It speaks to a deep desire to protect others from the pain and suffering he witnessed, both personally and within his community.
Absolutely. It's as if his past experiences, even the difficult ones, have shaped his approach to ministry, giving him a unique perspective and a deep sense of empathy for those battling addiction.
It's almost like he's trying to make amends for his past, using his platform to warn others about the dangers he faced.
Yeah.
It's a powerful example of turning personal struggles into a force for good.
Yeah. Welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive into John's fascinating life. It's been quite a journey so far, wouldn't you say? From those carefree days by the lake to his intense LSD experience and his dramatic conversion to Christianity.
It really has. And it makes you think about how seemingly unrelated events can shape a person's trajectory. We left off talking about John's dedication to his newfound faith and how it led him to establish a drug prevention center. It's almost poetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
This man who went through such a dark period with LSD, using that experience to try and guide others toward a different path.
It's a testament to the transformative power of personal experience, how our past struggles can become a source of strength and purpose. And it seems like John's past continues to inform his approach to spreading his message. He's developed a unique strategy for evangelism that he calls the greatest truth.
The greatest truth. What an intriguing name. I'm curious to know more about what that entails.
Well, John describes this approach as strategically highlighting sinfulness through the Ten Commandments. You know, the moral code found in the Bible to make people receptive to the message of salvation through Jesus.
That's interesting. So it's like he's saying you need to acknowledge the problem before you can appreciate the solution. It's similar to a doctor showing a patient their x-rays, revealing the severity of their condition before offering a cure.
Exactly. He believes that by exposing people to their own shortcomings, their own failings to live up to God's standards, they become more aware of their need for redemption.
But wouldn't some people find this approach confrontational or even judgmental? It seems like there's a fine line between highlighting someone's flaws and making them feel condemned.
That's a valid point. And it's a criticism John has faced throughout his ministry. Some people perceive his methods as overly harsh or even manipulative. But he argues that his intention is not to condemn, but to awaken a sense of spiritual need. He believes that true compassion lies in revealing the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, because it ultimately leads to lasting freedom and healing.
It's a complex issue for sure. And I imagine navigating that line between truth and compassion requires a great deal of sensitivity and wisdom.
Absolutely. And it's a tension that John seems to grapple with throughout his ministry. He acknowledges that his approach might not resonate with everyone and that there's a need for grace and understanding when sharing his beliefs.
It's like he's constantly trying to find that balance between conviction and empathy, boldness, and humility.
Precisely. And it's this ongoing wrestling with complex issues, this willingness to engage with difficult questions, that makes John's story so compelling. He's not afraid to challenge conventional thinking, even within his own faith community, and that makes him a unique and often controversial figure.
It's interesting how his approach to evangelism, his emphasis on confronting sin, seems to connect back to his own personal journey. He experienced such a profound sense of brokenness and despair during his LSD experience, and it was through that brokenness that he found his way to faith.
It's as if his own experience of confronting the darker aspects of himself, the parts that felt flawed or unworthy, paved the way for his spiritual awakening. And it seems like that personal transformation continues to fuel his desire to help others experience the same kind of redemption.
It's a powerful reminder that our past experiences, even the painful ones, can shape our worldview and influence our actions in profound ways. It's like John is saying, I've been to those dark places, I've faced those inner demons, and I know there's a way out. There's a path to healing and wholeness.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like he's offering a beacon of hope to those who are still lost in the darkness, drawing on his own journey to illuminate the path towards redemption. And his message seems to be resonating far and wide. He's gone from printing pamphlets in his basement to collaborating with well-known actors on television programs, spreading his message to a global audience.
It's amazing how his ministry has evolved over time. From those humble beginnings to reaching millions through television and books, it's clear that John's dedication and passion have struck a chord with people from all walks of life.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to see how his message has resonated with certain demographics. It seems like his approach, his emphasis on personal responsibility and moral accountability, appeals to those who are seeking structure and certainty in an increasingly chaotic world.
That makes sense. In a world where values are constantly shifting and traditional moral boundaries are being blurred, his message offers a sense of stability and clarity. It provides a framework for understanding right and wrong, a moral compass to navigate the complexities of modern life.
And for many people, that sense of clarity and purpose is exactly what they're searching for. They're looking for something to ground them, something to believe in, something that transcends the fleeting trends and anxieties of the moment.
It's like John is offering an antidote to the spiritual emptiness that many people feel, a way to connect with something bigger than themselves and find meaning and purpose in a world that often feels meaningless.
Precisely. He's tapping into that deep human longing for transcendence, for a connection to something beyond the material world, and that's a message that resonates across cultures and generations.
It's interesting how he uses metaphors and analogies to make these complex spiritual concepts more accessible to a wider audience. For example, he often talks about finding freedom within the confines of the train track.
Ah, yes, that's a powerful metaphor. He uses it to illustrate his belief that true freedom comes from submitting to God's will, from aligning your life with a higher purpose. He's saying that by surrendering to God's plan, you find a sense of liberation that transcends the limitations of your own desires and ambitions.
That's a thought-provoking concept. It challenges the notion that freedom is about doing whatever you want, whenever you want. Instead, he's suggesting that true freedom lies in surrendering to something greater than yourself, in finding a sense of purpose and direction that aligns with your values and beliefs.
Exactly. He's arguing that by relinquishing control, by letting go of our ego-driven desires, we actually find a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. It's like that old saying, let go and let God.
But wouldn't some people argue that this kind of thinking leads to blind obedience and a suppression of individuality? It seems like there's a risk of losing yourself in the pursuit of surrendering to a higher power.
That's a valid concern. And it's a tension that John acknowledges. He stresses that surrendering to God's will doesn't mean abandoning your critical thinking skills or becoming a mindless follower. It's about aligning your heart and mind with a set of principles that you believe to be true, and then allowing those principles to guide your decisions and actions.
It's like he's saying that true faith isn't about blindly following rules, but about embracing a set of values that resonate with your deepest sense of self, and then allowing those values to shape your life.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between surrender and agency, between trusting in a higher power and taking responsibility for your own choices.
It's a delicate balance, for sure.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's a lifelong journey of learning to discern God's will and applying it to the complexities of everyday life. But this concept of finding freedom through submission to God seems to be a core theme in John's ministry. It's the lens through which he views the world and the driving force behind his actions.
Absolutely. And it's a perspective that has profoundly impacted his personal relationships, particularly with his family.
That's right. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth exploring further. John's conversion to Christianity, such a dramatic shift in worldview, clearly created some tension within his family, especially with his mother, who held different religious beliefs. It's a common challenge when someone undergoes a profound spiritual transformation. How do you navigate those changing dynamics within your closest relationships?
It's a delicate dance, isn't it? How do you share your newfound faith without alienating those you love? John admits to some regrets about how he approached those early conversations, acknowledging that he might have been too forceful in pushing his beliefs on his family.
It's understandable that he'd be eager to share the joy and peace he'd found, but it's a valuable lesson in respecting boundaries and recognizing that everyone's spiritual journey is unique. It's not about forcing your beliefs on others, but about creating a space for open dialogue and mutual respect.
Exactly. And John emphasizes the importance of demonstrating faith through actions rather than just words. He uses the phrase, "be rich in good works," as a way to show genuine love and compassion to family members who might not share your beliefs.
It's a powerful reminder that true faith is often manifested in how we treat others, in the kindness and generosity we extend to those around us, regardless of their background or beliefs. It's about embodying the principles of your faith in your everyday interactions.
Absolutely. And it's a message that resonates with people from all walks of life. Whether you're a devout believer or someone who's skeptical of organized religion, there's a universal appeal to the idea of living a life that reflects compassion, integrity, and a commitment to making the world a better place.
It's about moving beyond empty words and putting your faith into action, demonstrating your beliefs through tangible acts of love and service. It's about living a life that reflects the values you hold dear.
Precisely. And it's this emphasis on action, on aligning your life with your beliefs, that seems to be at the heart of John's message. He's not just preaching from a pulpit. He's out there in the world, engaging with people, challenging conventional thinking, and striving to make a difference.
He's living out his faith in a very tangible way, putting his beliefs into action and inspiring others to do the same. And it's this authenticity, this commitment to walking the walk, that has made him such a compelling and influential figure. His story is a testament to the transformative power of belief, the beauty of redemption, and the importance of living a life aligned with your values.
It's a story that challenges us to reflect on our own journeys, to embrace our imperfections, and to find the courage to share our stories with the world. Join us for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll continue to explore the complexities of John's life and legacy, uncovering the deeper layers of his message and its impact on the world.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into John's life and journey. It's been a fascinating exploration, hasn't it? We've covered so much ground, from his idyllic childhood to his intense encounter with LSD, his dramatic conversion to Christianity, and his unwavering dedication to spreading his message.
John's story is a tapestry woven with threads of joy and struggle, rebellion and redemption. He's a man deeply shaped by his experiences, both positive and negative, and his unwavering belief in a higher power.
You know, one thing that continues to resonate with me is the stark contrast between his carefree early life and the profound existential crisis he faced later on. Like those carefree days by the lake were setting the stage for a deeper search for meaning, a search that ultimately led him to faith.
It's interesting how those early experiences, even the seemingly insignificant ones, can lay the groundwork for our later transformations. It's as if life is planting seeds along the way. Seeds that might lie dormant for years before they sprout and blossom into something unexpected.
And in John's case, it seems like that unexpected blossoming was triggered by a rather unlikely catalyst, LSD. You know, that experience, as dangerous and disorienting as it was, forced him to confront the fragility of life and the inevitability of death. It shook him to his core and left him searching for answers.
Yeah, it's a powerful example of how even the most challenging experiences can serve as catalysts for growth and transformation. It's like the LSD experience, with all its darkness and distortion, cracked open a space within him, a space where he could begin to question his assumptions and explore new possibilities.
It's like he needed that intense shaking up, that confrontation with his deepest fears, to break free from the confines of his previous worldview and embrace a new way of understanding life and death.
And it's fascinating how that experience, as unsettling as it was, ultimately led him to a place of peace and purpose. It's almost paradoxical, isn't it? How something so chaotic and disruptive could pave the way for a sense of order and meaning.
Right. It speaks to the complexity of the human experience, how our journeys are rarely linear or predictable. We often find our way through detours and unexpected turns, and sometimes it's those very detours that lead us to our most profound discoveries.
And in John's case, that profound discovery was the Christian faith. He embraced it with a fervor that transformed his life, driving him to dedicate himself to spreading his message and helping others find the same peace and redemption he'd experienced.
And his approach to spreading that message, his strategy for evangelism, has been both praised and criticized. His emphasis on highlighting sinfulness and moral accountability, particularly through his The Greatest Truth approach, has resonated with some while alienating others.
It's a bold approach, for sure, and it speaks to his unwavering conviction and his belief in the power of truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable or challenging.
But doesn't that approach, focusing so heavily on sin and judgment, contradict the message of love and compassion that's often associated with Christianity?
That's a question that has been debated for centuries within the Christian tradition. There are those who believe that the emphasis should be on God's love and mercy, while others believe that it's important to acknowledge the reality of sin and the need for repentance.
So where does John fall on that spectrum?
He seems to believe that both aspects are essential. He argues that you can't truly appreciate God's grace and forgiveness without first acknowledging your own need for it. He sees it as a process of waking people up to the reality of their spiritual condition, helping them to see their need for redemption.
It's like he's saying you need to shine a light on the darkness before you can truly appreciate the light. It's about confronting the brokenness, both within ourselves and in the world around us, in order to experience healing and wholeness.
Exactly. And while his approach might not resonate with everyone, there's no denying the impact it's had. His message has touched countless lives, inspiring people to embrace faith, overcome addiction, and find a new sense of purpose.
And it's not just about words. He's walking the walk. He's living out his faith in a tangible way, using his platform to advocate for those in need, to challenge injustice, and to spread a message of hope and redemption.
His life is a testament to the transformative power of belief and the ripple effect that one person's actions can have on the world.
Yeah. John's journey is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's potential for growth and transformation. It's a reminder that our experiences, both positive and negative, can shape us in profound ways, and that even when we stumble, we have the capacity to rise and find a new path.
His story challenges us to embrace our own imperfections, to confront our fears, and to find the courage to share our stories with the world. It's a story that reminds us that even amidst the chaos and uncertainty of life, there's always hope, always the possibility of redemption, and always the power of belief to guide us towards a brighter future.
It's been an incredible journey exploring the depths of John's life and the impact his faith has had on his worldview and his actions. I hope our listeners have found it as insightful and thought-provoking as we have.
Me too. And as we conclude this deep dive, I encourage you all to reflect on your own journeys, to consider the forces that have shaped your beliefs, and to embrace the complexities and contradictions that make each of us unique.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life of John. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep exploring the fascinating world of ideas and experiences that surround us.